Beste kijkers, en dan hebben wij nu in de studio Itai Bardov. En Itai Bardov is de niet-residerende ambassadeur van Israël in Suriname. Hij heeft zijn standplaats in Panama. En hij is niet-residerend voor Guyana, Barbados en een paar andere Caribische eilanden. Mr. Bardov, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Glenn.
And it's nice to have you here in Suriname. Is it your first visit?
No, this is my fourth time in Suriname, and it's always a pleasure being here in Sweden.
Okay, what strikes you so much as a pleasure when you are in Suriname?
Yeah, actually, you know, I really like the diversity of the country, the differences that you see here in landscape and in people. My previous visit, I also went to the Jordan Savannah. I had the honor of the privilege of visiting there, and it really was so interesting to see the history of the Jewish community here in the region, but also the beautiful views on the way. We went by a river and the jungles, and here in Paramaribo, it's always a pleasure. Yesterday, we had a wonderful meeting with the Chambers of Commerce and some businessmen.
Okay.
Just to mention, I'm here together with our director of Brazil, Central America and the Caribbean, Mr. Omer Cecek, and we are here together to explore different avenues in economic and political in strengthening the ties between Israel and Suriname.
Okay, you already, just as a slide, mentioned the bilateral relations with Suriname.
Yes.
In which kind do you want to extend the relations?
So of course we're always looking to maintain and strengthen the political relationship, and that is conducting visits and trying to see how we can work together in the international arena together. But of course also the economic cooperation, the bilateral business cooperation. Yesterday we had a really constructive meeting discussing agricultural technologies, water technologies, cybersecurity. Israel is a leader in these
yes,
areas.
and ICT, isn't it?
ICT, absolutely. Yeah. So we are a global leader, and we are looking to, we're searching avenues of cooperation in those fields. Also, we discussed, Israel has a aid agency, an aid agency, internationally called Mashav, where we provide assistance and know-how in different areas, including what I just mentioned. In that area, I just want to mention also that in the past, Israel assisted Suriname in quite a few aspects. One was during COVID, when we donated 4 tons of equipment combating COVID to Suriname. 2022, during the big floods, we donated a lot of equipment, boats, portable toilets, and that was for Suriname to help them and help the population that was affected by these floods. So this is what we are doing, always searching ways to enlarge and strengthen the cooperation in these different areas.
Okay, but there's also a two-way stream. And what kind of streams does Suriname has?
I have to mention the visit by Surinamese Foreign Minister Ramdin in Israel about 2 years ago, which was a really good visit. It was also a good symbol of the strong relations that we share. He had a very good meeting with then the Foreign Minister Yair Lapid. And also I have to say that since October 7th, since that terrible massacre conducted by Hamas against innocent Israelis, Suriname has expressed condemnation against Hamas, and we have seen it to be rather friendly towards Israel during these last 16 months.
Okay, we will go on that subject at a moment, but now the regional. How does Israel positions itself in the region?
In the Middle East?
No,
in the
Caribbean.
Sorry, yeah, well, I'm also...
For the people, we are not a Caribbean country, but we have a cultural Caribbean view.
Yes.
So we are South America, but we are Caribbeans too.
Yes. Well, I mentioned Caribbean because you are part of CARICOM,
yes.
and I am, an ambassador to CARICOM as well. So of course you can't put it all in just one basket. Each country stands by its own, although you are part of one Caribbean community.
Yes.
So I would say that we've seen our ups and downs during the last 15 months. There have been, we really are in a very difficult situation right now, Israel, in the middle of a war. We are winning this war actually in an amazing way. But I have to say we are also looking who's been standing besides us during these really difficult times in our time of need, and who has been more of an opposition. I'm not going to say exactly, name names or anything, but I will say that with Suriname, in the regional context, we've seen Suriname in a much more positive way. We feel Suriname to be a friendly country. Israel is not, we're not immune from any kind of criticism. Of course, you can criticize Israel, and that's fine. But there have been countries that have gone over the top and have exaggerated without knowing at all what is really going on there, without taking into consideration that we were attacked. We were forced into a war that we did not choose. We did not expect it. We were surprised. And in that regard, I would say that in the context of the region, we see Israel, we see Suriname as a positive element within the Caribbean community.
Okay, we don't have problems with Muslims and Jews and Christians. We don't think about that.
Glenn, I have to say in that aspect, it's very important. You visited Israel. In Israel, we have 20% of the population are Muslims who are free, equal rights citizens. You see them in all walks of life. They're Supreme Court judges, members of parliament. They're playing in Israel national football team. Anywhere, doctors, they are part, and that's what I think lacks. There's a lacking of understanding within the Caribbeans, because we are so far away from each other, that Israel is the real only democracy in the Middle East. And you can walk in the streets of Jerusalem and hear the bells of churches and the cries of the muezzins and the shofars in synagogues. You don't see that in any other country.
I can confirm that. I was there.
You were there, so you saw it with your own eyes.
Yes.
And I would love, that's what I love, when people come to Israel and see with their own eyes and are not affected or influenced by the distortions and the fake news that they see on social media or on mainstream news.
Okay, talking about eventually fake news or news that's one-sided. We see sometimes from the news media where we cut our news that Israel has a severe point of view concerning the Palestinians and Hamas, of course. How are the relations by now? I've read that there is some exchange of hostages. How does that go?
Yeah, it's not exactly just exchange of hostages, because one side has hostages, which is Hamas, holding Israeli hostages who were kidnapped from their beds, from their homes, into these terrible tunnels in Gaza. And on the other hand, Israel is giving back terrorists and prisoners who were either attempted to murder or murdered, and that is the exchange we are doing. So on the one hand, there were children who were being brought back 10 years old, 9 years old. Just this week, we had a funeral of a mother and her 2 children, young children.
I was there when I visited the what's left over from a festival, and then I saw
of the Nova Festival.
Yes, Nova Festival.
This was a festival, it was a music festival for peace. That was what it's a music festival for peace. And 360 youngsters were murdered on that terrible day of October 7th just because they went to a music festival. And more than from the festival itself, we had around 80 who were kidnapped. 251 were kidnapped on that day. 80 of them from the festival, 360 were murdered on that day. Youngsters who came just to enjoy life and to celebrate peace. That was the title of the festival. So and so when we speak about an exchange, you have to, on the one hand, we got back just this week a mother who was kidnapped alive with her 2 young children, a 10-month-old baby, Fir Bibas, and his 4-year-old brother, Ariel Bibas. They were murdered with bare hands in Hamas, in Gaza, by Hamas terrorists. And what we are giving back, and in much bigger numbers, because that is the price that Hamas is demanding, are convicted terrorists or those who supported terrorism and criminals. That is a difference. And people need to understand the difference between Israel, a democratic country, and Hamas, a dictatorship, terrorist entity. And I have to say, in the context of history, when you spoke about the relationship between Israel and Palestinians, Israel left Gaza in 2005, entirely, completely left Gaza in the hands of the Palestinians for them to rule, to govern. I remember very vividly, it was a very difficult time for Israelis because we forced Jews out of their homes. We uprooted graves. And I remember very vividly, we said, okay, here's a chance for the Palestinians to build their own Singapore in the Middle East. And instead what we got was missiles and rockets, was Hamas taking over, a terrorist organization committed within its own charter to the destruction of the state of Israel. And we were facing, on a daily basis, our cities and communities were facing a barrage of daily rockets being fired from Gaza, terrorist attacks from within Gaza. And this all culminated at the end in October 7th of 2023 to the worst attack against Jews since the Holocaust.
Okay, and that's, I understand, and I think the Surinamese people will understand that too. But what will Israel do for a more balanced kind of information?
The information issue, you mean how we provide the information
yes.
about what is happening? That's a very good question.
Because, yes, because we got our information from Al Jazeera, from the NOS, that is the Dutch
yes.
large broadcasting system, and from CNN.
So this is exactly, this shows you the situation that we are when it comes to spreading the information, because there's no other country in the world, no other country that faces so much misrepresentation, distortions, fake news. You mentioned Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera, we don't see it as a news media. We see it as a political arm that has a very clear agenda to attack Israel. It is serving in a way as a media arm for Hezbollah and for Hamas. It is being funded by Qatar, so it will not criticize the Qatari regime, for instance. It is being funded by Qatar, but Al Jazeera is a very effective propaganda tool for Hamas, for Hezbollah, for the Iranians, and that is something that people need to take into consideration. Secondly, we are a tiny country. We are a very, very small country. We don't have the capabilities and the capacity to confront the widespread of fake news. There's not a day goes by when I don't see on social media pictures that come from the civil war in Syria. You know, the Syrian regime, Assad, he killed tens of thousands of Palestinians, hundreds of thousands of his own people, millions of refugees around the world. And I don't know how many people in Suriname are aware of that, of what happened there. And then you get these photos and videos from the civil war in Syria, and people saying, look what Israel is doing. And I can't blame a Surinamese person who sees that and thinks, oh, this is Israel, and has no idea that this is entirely something different.
No, we are not that rich to send a reporter there.
I understand. Okay. And the information that the CNN gets, is from within Gaza, is based on Hamas. Hamas is the one who is controlling the information that comes out of Gaza. So all these numbers, all these images are all controlled by Hamas, and they take it as is, and they spread it and they continue to spread that information. So you really have to take it with a big pinch of salt, okay. all this information.
The last question, Mr. Ambassador. We've heard about the plans that the American president had for the Palestinians in the Gaza to move them all and rebuild Gaza without Palestinians. What is the opinion of the Israeli government on this point of view?
I cannot speak on behalf of the American administration, but from outside, first of all, I just want to convey my gratitude to President Trump for his clear, unequivocal support for the State of Israel, for its war as a democratic entity against a terrorist organization. And we have to emphasize the idea that President Trump is trying to think out of the box. Yeah. And what he said is willingly. He's not going to force anyone, but he says, listen, because of what Hamas did, Gazans are facing a huge destruction within Gaza. We'll need to rebuild Gaza. There are still a lot of, even unexploded explosives, rockets in Gaza, many of them from Hamas that misfired and fell in Gaza.
But then sending all the Palestinians away and put them in Egypt?
The idea that he came is I'm offering any Palestinian in Gaza who would like to move, live in a much normal place while we reconstruct Gaza. And we turn Gaza into something that is not governed by terrorism and by hate and by fear, because that is what has been.
So is it not true that he means that all the Palestinians move from the Gaza and stay forever in Egypt? And
he came up with an idea where he was saying, listen, I want to try and improve the lives for Gazans.
That's just an idea,
not forcing anyone. Definitely working together with the other countries in the region, but the idea is to improve the situation for the Gazans and to ensure security for everyone there. Because right now, Glenn, we cannot go back to October 6th, to the day before October 6th,
of course not.
Where Hamas is governing, where hatred, where they were being taught in schools to hate Jews, that Israel must be destroyed. We cannot go back to that kind. So what I think President Trump is trying to say is we have to change the way we're thinking. And what he has done, by the way, is that he has incentivized other countries, other actors in the region to come with their own proposals, with their own ideas, to try and have them think out of the box. Because I think there's quite a consensus within the Western world, democratic countries, and the moderate countries in the Middle East that Hamas can no longer govern Gaza. How will Gaza look in the future? That is something that is still being discussed. And I think President Trump came with an idea trying to think out of the box, because thinking within the box will only bring us back to cycles of violence and wars. And we don't want that. We want to live in peace and harmony with all our neighbors.
Okay, let us look how it will continue. And Mr. Ambassador, I thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, it was a pleasure.
And I hope when you come back in Suriname, you will visit ABC again.
And absolutely, and just as I mentioned, we are here in Suriname because we are actually looking to focus on Suriname in strengthening our bilateral relations, both political and economically. And there's a lot of things that Israel can do to support Suriname in what they need, in different areas that they need. So, and that was one of the discussions we had yesterday while we were here.
Nice. En zo, beste kijkers, hebt u kunnen luisteren naar dit interview dat ik had met Itai Bardov. Hij is hier voor een paar dagen, de ambassadeur van Israël. En we zullen hem heel gauw weer spreken. Dit moet het einde betekenen van Magazine 4 voor vandaag. Het is vandaag vrijdag. Morgen hebben we geen uitzending, zondag ook niet. Maar maandag zijn we er weer met een andere uitzending van Magazine 4. Een goede middag en graag tot de volgende keer.